The sky above the strange world was dark purple, filled with two glowing moons. A small fire burned in the wreckage of a human ship, broken into pieces across the rocky ground. The air was heavy, carrying a strange metallic taste. From the ruins crawled a man named Miran. His suit was torn, but he was alive. He pulled himself up, coughing, and looked around. "This place, not Earth," he whispered. His voice echoed back from tall black cliffs around him. He had been traveling through space, a lone scout searching for new paths between stars. But something had gone wrong. His ship had been dragged by a sudden energy wave, and now he was here, on a planet not marked on any human map. Miran knew he had to find shelter. He grabbed a small survival pack and started walking. The ground shook faintly with each step, as if something deep below was alive. After hours of walking through twisting canyons, he found an opening. A faint light shone from inside the rock wall. Curious, Miran stepped in. The tunnel was warm and alive with glowing crystals. Strange markings lined the walls, as if carved by intelligent hands. The deeper he went, the more the tunnel opened until it revealed a hidden city underground. His breath caught. The city was unlike anything he had seen. Towers of smooth stone rose upward, connected by glowing bridges. Blue fire floated in the air without fuel. The streets below were filled with tall figures covered in silver armor. Their faces were hidden, but their sharp movements told him they were not human. Before he could step back, he was spotted. A loud horn echoed, and armored beings rushed toward him. Miran froze, raising his hands. "I mean no harm," he shouted. His voice sounded small in the giant cavern. The guards surrounded him, their weapons humming with bright energy. One of them pointed at him and spoke in a language he did not know. Yet, strangely, the meaning entered his mind. "Seize the intruder. Bring him to the queen." Miran was dragged through the shining streets as alien eyes followed. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with disgust, as though he were an insect that had wandered into their home. At last, he was pushed into a great hall. The ceiling stretched so high it seemed endless. At the far end sat a throne carved from black crystal. Upon it rested the alien queen. She was tall, her form elegant yet terrifying. Her skin shimmered like silver stone, and her eyes glowed faint blue. A crown of living crystal grew from her head, pulsing like a heartbeat. When she saw Miran, her gaze hardened. "A human," she said, her voice deep and sharp. The words entered his mind as if she spoke directly inside his head. "How dare one of your kind step into my city?" Miran bowed his head slightly but stood firm. "I did not come here by choice. My ship crashed. I only seek a way to survive." The queen rose from her throne, her robe flowing like liquid metal. She stepped closer, towering over him. "Your kind are weak. No one survives here without my command," she said coldly. "You will answer to me, or you will be destroyed." The guards tightened their hold on Miran, expecting him to beg. But instead, he straightened his back and met the queen's glowing eyes. "I will not kneel," he said quietly. "I am human. I will not break." The hall grew silent. The guards shifted uneasily. No one had ever spoken to the queen this way. For the first time, the alien queen's eyes flickered with surprise. She narrowed them quickly, hiding her reaction, but something in her chest stirred a feeling she had not known for ages. She waved her hand. "Lock him away. Let him learn what it means to defy me." Miran was dragged out, yet he did not resist. His calm steps echoed as if he walked with pride, not fear. The queen watched him go, her jaw tight, her thoughts troubled. "Strange human," she muttered to herself. "Why does he not bow?" And in that first meeting, a spark was lit, one of anger, but also of curiosity. The cell was unlike anything Miran had ever seen. The walls were alive, glowing faintly like the surface of a star. They shifted with soft pulses, as if the whole place was breathing. The floor hummed under his boots, and the air carried a sharp, metallic taste. Most people would have felt fear in such a place. But Miran sat calmly on the cold surface, studying everything around him. He traced the lines of light with his eyes, noting how the walls dimmed when he moved too close. "They don't understand humans," he whispered to himself. "And they don't know I don't break easily." Outside the cell, two armored guards stood like statues. Their faces were hidden, their weapons glowing faintly in their hands. From time to time, one of them glanced inside, expecting to see a trembling human. Instead, they always saw Miran sitting straight, watching, thinking. Hours passed, but Miran did not lose hope. He pulled his survival pack closer and examined what he had left: a broken communicator, a cracked scanner, and a tiny toolkit. Nothing seemed useful. But Miran had learned long ago that even useless things could become valuable if one refused to give up. He took the communicator and began turning it over, studying the alien energy hum that filled the cell. The walls were alive, yes, but not invincible. He pressed the broken device against the wall and listened. The hum changed slightly. His eyes narrowed. "There's a pattern," he thought. "If I can understand it, maybe I can talk to it." Meanwhile, far above, the alien Queen Vera sat on her throne. But her mind was not on her council's words. She was thinking of the human. No prisoner had ever stared into her eyes without fear. No voice had ever spoken to her with such calm defiance. She had expected him to beg for freedom or fall silent in despair. Instead, he watched, studied, and carried himself as if chains could not hold him. "Strange creature," she murmured. "Why does he resist?" Her advisor, an old commander named Silok, noticed her distraction. "My queen," he said, "the human is nothing. Let him rot, and he will be forgotten." But Vera shook her head slowly. "No. He is different. He does not act like prey. He looks at me as though he sees me as equal. No one dares that." Back in the glowing cell, Miran's fingers worked tirelessly. Piece by piece, he opened the broken communicator and used the parts to build a crude device. Sparks flew, but he ignored them. At last, he placed the tool against the wall. The wall pulsed brighter, and for a moment, the humming shifted into a rhythm that almost sounded like speech. The guards outside looked sharply at him, surprised. One barked something in their language, but Miran only smiled. "Your walls are alive, aren't they?" he said softly, almost to himself. "But even living walls can be understood." The guards frowned, but said nothing. When the queen came later to see him, she expected to find a broken man. Instead, she found him sitting with a strange device in his lap, his eyes filled with quiet determination. "You repair your toys," she said coldly, her voice echoing inside his mind. "Do you think that will save you?" Miran looked up, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "I don't play with toys," he said. "I learn. That's what humans do. We learn, and we adapt." The words struck her harder than any weapon. For a moment, silence filled the cell. The guards shifted uneasily, waiting for her command. But the queen did not strike him. She only stepped closer, her glowing eyes sharp. "You are stubborn. That stubbornness will destroy you." "Or save me," Miran answered. Her lips tightened. She turned sharply, her robe flowing like liquid silver. "Keep him under watch," she ordered the guards. "Let us see how long this human pride lasts." Yet as she walked away, something inside her twisted. She was angry, yes, but also unsettled. The human's calm words echoed in her mind like a challenge. That night, while the city above prepared for war against rival clans, the queen sat alone in her chamber. Her thoughts returned again and again to the prisoner who refused to kneel. And in the deep cell, Miran leaned back against the glowing wall, his device flickering faint light. He closed his eyes, but his mind was awake, sharp, ready. He was no broken prisoner. He was waiting. The alien cell glowed faintly as Miran sat cross-legged on the floor, his small device humming in his hands. He had not escaped, yet he felt strangely calm. Every hour in this strange place taught him something new. Every hum of the wall, every flicker of light added to his understanding. The guards watched him carefully, whispering to each other in their sharp alien tongue. They could not understand how a prisoner could sit so steady, so focused, instead of begging or breaking. Then, the sound of heavy footsteps filled the corridor. The guards straightened at once, their weapons glowing brighter. A voice entered the cell even before the figure stepped inside. "Human," the queen's voice rang, cold and sharp, "you test my patience." Queen Vera entered, tall and radiant, her crown of crystal glowing brighter in the dim cell. Her presence alone filled the air with weight. The guards bowed deeply, but Miran only lifted his head slowly, his eyes steady on hers. He did not kneel. He did not lower his gaze. Vera's lips curled slightly. "Still, you defy me," she said. "Why do you refuse to surrender?" Miran placed the device aside and stood. His voice was calm but firm. "Because I am human. We do not kneel unless we choose to. You can lock me here, but you cannot take my will." The words echoed strangely in the glowing walls. The guards shifted, uneasy, for no one had ever dared to speak so directly to their queen. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Vera's glowing eyes searched his face, expecting to see fear. Instead, she found something else: calm strength. "You are a fragile creature," she said at last. "Your body is weak. Your weapons are broken. You stand before me, the ruler of the city, and yet you speak as if you are equal to me." "I speak as a man," Miran answered simply. "Titles do not frighten me. Power does not silence me. Freedom matters more than fear." The words struck her like a blade. Her crown flickered as her anger rose, but deep inside, something else stirred a spark of doubt. No alien in her court had ever dared question her. No one had spoken to her as if she were just another being. Her voice grew sharper. "You think courage will protect you? You think your stubborn pride makes you strong?" "It does," Miran said. "Strength is not only in the body. It is here." He touched his chest. "And here." He pointed to his head. The queen's guards tightened their grip on their weapons, waiting for her command to silence him. But Vera lifted her hand, stopping them. She stepped closer, her silver robe brushing the glowing floor. Her shadow fell over him like a storm cloud. She leaned in, her voice low and heavy. "You are either the bravest fool I have ever seen, or something far more dangerous." Miran's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Maybe I am both." For the first time, Vera hesitated. Her anger and her curiosity fought inside her. This human should have been nothing: a pest, a mistake, a fragile life lost on a hostile world. Yet he stood before her unbroken, his words sharp as any blade. The silence between them grew tense, filled with sparks that neither could ignore. The queen turned sharply, her robe sweeping the floor. "Keep him alive," she ordered the guards, her voice colder than before. "I will question him again. Let us see how long his courage lasts." The guards bowed, and Vera strode out of the cell, but her thoughts were not calm. Her mind replayed his words, her chest tight with a feeling she did not name. Back in the throne hall, her council noticed her silence. Commander Silok stepped forward. "My queen, this human speaks too boldly. Allow me to end him now before his words spread among the guards." But Vera raised her hand sharply. "No. He remains." Silok frowned. Why, my queen? Her glowing eyes narrowed. Because I want to know why he does not break. That night, alone in her private chamber, she stood by the window of crystal glass, looking out at the endless glowing city. Her fists clenched as she remembered his steady gaze. Why does he not fear me, she whispered. Why does his voice stay in my mind? In the deep cell, Miran lay against the glowing wall, his eyes closed, but his mind sharp. He knew the queen would return. He knew their battle was not of weapons, but of will. And he was ready. The city above hummed with tension. Messages from the outer districts came fast. Rival alien clans were gathering at the borders. Their numbers were large, their weapons deadly. Even the strongest cities could fall if unprepared. Queen Vera paced the halls of her crystal palace, her mind racing. Her advisors spoke quickly, giving strategies and warnings, but her thoughts drifted again to the human Miran. He had refused to bow, refused to show fear, and yet he had not caused any harm. In fact, his calm words lingered in her mind like a song she could not forget. He is too small, too weak, Silok, her trusted commander, said. Why do you hesitate? We have bigger threats to focus on than one human prisoner. Vera's hands clenched. And yet, she said slowly, there is something in him, something I do not understand. Silok shook his head. He cannot help us, my queen. He is not trained in our ways. Let him remain a prisoner. Focus on the clans. Vera turned away, her glowing eyes fixed on the city below. She could not stop thinking about Miran. The thought made her uneasy. No human had ever walked through her halls with calm courage. No one had ever dared to defy her in that way. Meanwhile, in his cell, Miran studied the glowing walls and the device he had built from scraps. He had learned more about the energy patterns in the palace and the city's defense systems than the guards realized. If he could communicate with the walls, perhaps he could understand the city's true strengths and weaknesses. And if the queen would listen, he could use that knowledge to help her survive. The guards came again to bring food, their eyes cautious. They whispered among themselves about the human's strange intelligence. Some feared he might have powers beyond what they could see. Miran accepted the food silently, then leaned close to the wall. He pressed a finger to the glowing surface. The hum shifted, and he smiled slightly. They think I am just a prisoner, he muttered to himself. But even here, I can learn, and maybe I can help. Hours later, Queen Vera returned to his cell. She did not bring anger this time, only curiosity. She watched him sit quietly, examining the glowing walls. You continue to defy me, she said. And yet, you sit calmly while others tremble. Miran looked up. I have no reason to tremble. I have no wish to fight you. I only wish to survive. And if survival comes by learning, I will learn. Vera studied him carefully. And you think learning here will help you? I think learning helps everyone, he replied. Even you, my queen. The words made her stop. Do not speak to me as if I need your lessons, human. I do not mean to teach, he said. I only see what others ignore. I see patterns. I see risks. I see ways to protect your city from the clans. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her hands tightened around her robes. Could she trust a human? Could she risk sharing her city's defenses with someone she barely knew? Yet, as she looked at him, she saw something she could not ignore, his confidence, his intelligence, and a strange clarity in his mind. I will not promise anything, she said finally. But, perhaps your words may be of some use. Miran nodded. That is all I ask. Let me help, and I will do my best. That night, Vera returned to her private chambers. She stood by the high window, gazing at the city she had ruled for decades. The hum of energy around the palace felt different now, as if the human had touched it in some unseen way. He is small, she whispered. And yet, he may be the key to saving everything. Far below, Miran lay awake in his cell, thinking of strategies, studying patterns in the city, and learning the ways the alien systems worked. He did not see himself as a hero, only as someone who refused to give up. And in that moment, a strange bond began, not of friendship, but of respect and possibility. The human and the queen, though so different, both understood the same truth: survival required courage, intelligence, and the will to act, no matter the danger. The city outside hummed, unaware that the future might rest in the hands of one stubborn human and a queen who had never known defiance like his. The sky over the city burned with the light of dawn. From the distant hills, dark shapes moved, thousands of alien warriors marching toward the crystal city. Their weapons glimmered with deadly energy. Inside the palace, Queen Vera stood on a high balcony, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. Her guards waited behind her, tense and ready. She felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. She had faced many threats, but the sheer number of attackers made even her pulse quicken. Miran stepped beside her. He had been allowed out of the cell under strict watch, and now he studied the enemy forces with careful eyes. "They are strong," he said. "But they move in patterns. Predictable patterns. If we position your forces carefully, we can defend the city and protect the gates." Vera's eyes narrowed. "You think a human can teach me how to defend my city?" "I do not think," Miran said. "I know. I have seen armies like this before. Strategy is about thinking faster than the enemy." For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then she nodded sharply. "Show me what you mean." Miran moved quickly, speaking to the captain of the guards. He suggested placing energy barriers in certain paths, using the bridges to funnel the enemy into narrow lanes, and coordinating small squads to strike from the shadows. The guards murmured among themselves, surprised at the human's knowledge. The queen watched, her anger at him slowly turning into cautious respect. His ideas were strange, yes, but clever. If followed correctly, they could give the city a chance. By midday, the enemy forces reached the outer walls. The gates shone with energy, and the first waves of attackers pressed forward. The battle began with loud booms and flashes of light. Miran ran along the walls, helping the guards adjust positions. Every suggestion he made seemed to work. The enemy pushed hard, but they were trapped in the lanes Miran had predicted. Small squads ambushed them from above, and barriers forced them to slow down. From the throne hall, Vera watched her city respond like never before. She had led battles before, but this strategy, coming from a human mind, was unlike anything she had imagined. The city moved as a single, powerful force. The enemy fought fiercely, but Miran's ideas turned the tide. Waves of invaders were slowed, cornered, and pushed back. The queen's soldiers began to trust his commands, shouting out to each other as they followed his instructions. Vera herself stepped onto the field at one point, her glowing energy forming shields to protect key points. She moved like a storm, her presence commanding fear among the attackers. Yet even she could not have held the lines without the human's guidance. By sunset, the enemy had retreated to the hills, licking their wounds. The city's defenders cheered, their voices echoing through the glowing towers. For the first time, Queen Vera allowed herself a small smile. "You, human," she said to Miran as he returned to her side, "you have saved my city. I thought you were weak. I thought you could not help. But you were right. Strength is more than size. It is courage. It is thinking. It is will." Miran bowed slightly, his face calm. "I only did what I could. Your city is strong because your people fought bravely. I only guided them." The queen's eyes softened, though her glow remained sharp. "You have changed something here. The guards respect you now. Even I. I cannot ignore you." Miran smiled faintly. I never wanted praise. I only wanted to survive and help if I could. Sometimes, courage is contagious. That night, the city celebrated its victory. The Queen's Council marveled at the human's cleverness, while Vera herself could not stop thinking about him. He had faced her anger, her commands, her power, and yet he remained calm, clever, and unbroken. Miran returned to a quiet room in the palace, his eyes scanning maps of the city and enemy positions. He knew the rival clans would return, stronger and smarter. But he also knew the city could survive if they learned to work together. And somewhere deep inside, the Queen began to see the human not as a prisoner or a weak creature, but as someone who had earned her attention and maybe even her respect. The sun set over the glowing towers, painting the sky in shades of red and purple. The first battle was won. But the war, the test of strength, and the strange bond between Queen and human had only just begun. The ground trembled beneath the city of crystal towers. Alarms echoed across the alien capital as the sky turned dark with shapes that were not clouds. The machines had come at last. Endless black forms dropped from the upper skies, spreading like a storm of iron wings. Their glowing red eyes burned against the silver horizon. Inside the palace, the alien queen stood at the highest balcony, her crown of living crystals glowing faintly. Her people gathered below, frightened and uncertain. The walls of the city had not fallen yet, but she knew this was the final attack. The machines would not stop until the palace itself was crushed to dust. At her side stood Marco, wrapped in his patched-up armor. His face was pale from the wounds of the last battle, but his eyes burned with the same fire as always. He looked at the sky full of machines, then at the Queen. "They're not here for your throne," Marco said firmly. "They're here to erase hope. If we hold this city, your people will believe again." The Queen narrowed her eyes. "And if we fail?" Marco smiled faintly. "Then we fail together, standing." The Queen studied him, this fragile human who would not leave her alone. Her warriors had seen countless battles and lost almost all. Yet this one man, weak in body but unbroken in spirit, made them lift their weapons again. She raised her hand, and her voice spread across the city through the palace walls. "Soldiers of the Silver Crown," she shouted, her voice ringing with power, "the enemy has come to break us once more. But today, we fight not alone. Today, we fight with one who does not fear death, a human who has shown us the strength of a stubborn heart. Stand with him, stand with me, and let the machines taste their first true defeat." The crowd roared, the sound echoing through the city streets. For the first time in years, they did not shout in fear but in fury. The machines struck first. Waves of drones crashed into the walls, firing beams that cracked the shining towers. Explosions lit the sky. Soldiers rushed to the battlements, firing strange blue weapons that sent bursts of energy into the enemy swarms. Marco was at the front, not hiding in the palace but fighting among the soldiers. He climbed onto the wall, swinging his old human rifle, and began firing shot after shot. His aim was steady, his movements quick. The Queen joined the battle herself. She leaped from the palace balcony, landing like a thunderbolt on the broken ground. Energy erupted around her as the crystals of her crown blazed with white light. She struck the machines with blasts of power, breaking whole groups at once. The people saw their queen fighting beside the human, and their courage doubled. But the machines were endless. For every one that fell, two more descended from the skies. Giant walkers with legs of steel crashed through the city gates, shaking the streets. The ground split as a massive drilling machine pushed upward, trying to reach the palace's heart. Marco ran straight toward it, his rifle useless against its armored shell. "Cover me," he shouted, sprinting across rubble and flames. Alien soldiers fired at the monster machine, trying to slow it down. Marco leaped onto its leg, climbing higher as sparks rained around him. He carried a small pack of explosives he had built from scraps of alien and human tech. Gritting his teeth, he jammed the pack into one of the vents. The machine thrashed, shaking violently, but Marco held on. A burst of fire followed, and the machine collapsed in smoke and ruin. He fell hard onto the stone ground, coughing, but still alive. The queen rushed to him, her crown blazing with fury. "You reckless fool," she shouted, pulling him back to his feet. Marco grinned weakly. "You asked me to fight beside you, not behind you." Together, they turned as the battle raged. The final wave was coming. A massive warship descended from the skies, its shadow covering the palace. Its cannons glowed as they charged to strike. The queen raised her arms, channeling every drop of her energy. The crystals on her crown cracked under the force. She was ready to give her life to stop the weapon. But before she could release her power, Marco stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "Not alone," he said. "We do this together." He climbed onto the shattered wall and aimed his rifle at the warship's glowing cannon. Alone, his weapon was useless. But with the queen's power, it could become something greater. She focused her energy into him, her light flowing through his weapon. Marco pulled the trigger. A beam of white fire shot out, striking the warship's cannon. The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. The warship split apart, crashing into the horizon with a roar that shook mountains. The machines below, cut off from their master, went still. One by one, they fell silent, collapsing like broken puppets. The city stood in stunned silence. Smoke rose into the air, the towers cracked, the streets littered with debris. But the palace still stood. The people were still alive. Marco dropped to one knee, exhausted. The queen caught him before he fell completely. For a long moment, she only stared at him, her voice trembling. "Why won't you leave me alone, human?" she whispered again. Marco smiled faintly, his face pale but his eyes unbroken. "Because I told you, no one deserves to fall alone." The queen looked out over her city. For the first time in centuries, victory was theirs. And at the center of it stood one human who refused to walk away. The city was silent after the great battle. The machines lay broken in the streets, their red eyes dark. Smoke rose into the sky, mixing with the glow of the silver rivers that still ran through the land. The alien people gathered outside the palace, their faces tired but full of hope. For the first time in living memory, they had survived the storm. Inside the palace, Marco sat on a stone bench, his armor broken and his clothes torn. His body ached from wounds, but his spirit burned stronger than ever. The soldiers who passed by bowed to him, something no human had ever seen on this world. They called him brother, though his blood was not theirs. The alien queen walked slowly toward him. Her crown of crystals was cracked, and her once bright robes were stained with battle dust. She did not walk like a ruler now. She walked like someone who had carried the weight of her people for far too long. Marco looked up at her and gave a faint smile. "Still standing, Your Majesty," he said. "You should not even be alive," she replied, her voice quiet. "And yet, you are." He shrugged, though his shoulders shook with pain. "Humans are stubborn. We don't know when to quit." The queen studied him for a long time. Around them, her advisors and guards wanted to celebrate victory, but she raised her hand, and silence filled the hall. Her eyes stayed fixed on the human before her. "Why won't you leave me alone, human?" she asked once more. But this time, there was no anger in her voice. There was only confusion, and something softer, hidden deep within. Marco looked at the broken ceiling above them, then back at her. "Because when I saw your people," he said slowly, "I saw more than a dying world. I saw a chance to stand for someone who had forgotten what hope looks like. And no one, no queen, no soldier, no child deserves to face the dark alone." Her crystal crown dimmed, as if responding to her heart. For years, She had led her people with iron pride, never showing weakness, never letting anyone see her fear. But now, in front of this human, her eyes softened. "You risked everything for us," she whispered. "Yet this world was never yours." Marco chuckled faintly. "Doesn't matter whose world it is. Life is life. That's reason enough." The queen turned to her people, who had gathered in silence. Their eyes were on her, waiting for her words. She raised her voice, letting it echo through the great hall. "This human," she said, "came to us as a stranger. I called him weak. I told him to leave. Yet he stood with us when the enemy came, and he gave us the courage we had lost. Today, we still breathe because of his heart." The people cheered, their voices filling the hall. Some shouted Marco's name, others bowed, and a few even wept. The queen turned back to him, her voice dropping lower. "Our law says that one who saves the crown may claim a gift." "What gift do you ask, human?" Marco shook his head. "I don't need a crown, or treasure. I only wanted to make sure your people live to see another dawn." The queen frowned. "Always you refuse reward. Always you act without thought of yourself. What kind of being are you, Marco?" He smiled, weary but proud. "I'm just human. That's enough." Silence hung for a moment, then the queen laughed softly, a sound none of her people had heard in many years. It was not mocking laughter, but something lighter, almost free. "You are strange, human," she said. "Strange, and impossible. And perhaps, necessary." Days passed. The machines no longer stirred, their warship broken beyond repair. The people began to rebuild their city. Where there had been despair, there was now hope. Soldiers trained not with hopeless faces but with steady determination. Children played in the streets again. Marco walked among them, helping rebuild walls and fixing small machines with his rough hands. Everywhere he went, the people greeted him, not as an outsider but as family. He laughed with them, worked with them, and reminded them that victory was not the end, it was only the beginning of a new future. The queen often watched him from afar. Her pride had not vanished, but it had changed. She no longer saw him as a nuisance or a fool. She saw him as something more, someone who had carried her people through fire when even she thought it was impossible. One evening, she found him standing at the edge of the city, looking at the stars. His wounds had healed slowly, but he stood tall. "You look far from here," she said, stepping beside him. "Just thinking," he replied. "The universe is wide. Too wide for one life. But sometimes, all it takes is one fight in one place to change everything." The queen was silent for a long time, then spoke softly. "Stay." Marco turned to her. "Stay." "Yes," she said firmly. "Stay with my people. Stay with me. For you have given us back more than survival. You have given us hope. And I no longer wish for you to leave me alone." Marco studied her face, the pride still there but softened by something deeper. He smiled. "Then I'll stay. Not as your subject. Not as your savior. But as your equal." The queen lowered her crown, her voice steady. "Equal, then." Human and queen, standing together. The two of them looked out at the stars, no longer strangers, no longer alone. The bond between them was not born of power or law, but of shared struggle and trust. And in that bond lay the strength of a new future, one where even a single human could change the fate of a world.